What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Vanguard Zone. My name is Sam. I'm joined by my host, Gianluca. How you doing today, Gianluca?
NLK baby. I mean, it's pretty good. We both had pretty fun weeks doing stuff, which
Yes.
is why we're recording this.
Yes.
Uh, well past the point of first impressions and at the point of we have some Japanese results impressions.
Yes, we wait a little bit. We kind of have a better grip of the cards, and now we're going to talk about them with
That's true.
our opinions, which will be nice.
I have some strong opinions about
Yes.
a lot of the Dark States cards.
Yes. And, of course, we'll go nation by nation, starting with some universal cards. Each nation got a new front trigger, but unlike other triggers in the Overdress era, we got effects. And all of the nations got a front trigger that says when your opponent's is grade 3, it gets plus 5k shield.
These cards are sweet. They're just sweet. The lowering of shield values was a big part of Overdress, and while it wasn't really like that big a deal in set 1, you got used to it and all the numbers are super clean. Adding in some bonus to defenses is great, especially because pretty much every deck in set 1 was 7 crit, no, 8 crit 3 draw. Or no, it was 7 crit 3 draw. Right?
I think it
forgetting my
varies.
trigger
It
lineup.
definitely varies between like the decks. We saw how impactful that the 20k shields had in V era with the 20k heal triggers. Now some decks are kind of on the fence between playing draws and playing fronts. Bastion for one of them, Zorga is another one, and now I think these new triggers tip the scale towards running 20k front shields for extra defense, which is much needed in this format, I think.
Yeah, it really helps like make decks defensive. It gives you some interesting deck building options where you can choose to be less card advantage by not running draw triggers, and instead you get these front triggers that have bonus defenses.
Yeah.
So it's good all the way around. It's really fun. Some of them there's slam dunks for. Honestly, a lot of the stuff we've been seeing about the Japanese stuff, it does seem like a lot of the decks they're just slam dunks for the extra shield value.
Yes.
But it's still just good overall.
Yeah, and I think front triggers are kind of underpowered in set 1. It kind of felt like unless if you didn't need the draw, you just run fronts instead. It's just kind of like, well, I need 3 more trigger slots. I don't need the draw. Might as well put these in. But now I think fronts kind of get stronger, which is always nice. You don't want like one trigger to just kind of be inferior from the others.
Good stuff. Excited to see if they do more cheeky trigger things in the future.
We move on to Dragon Empire. We will start with Dragon Empire's new ride line, which is led by everyone's favorite dragon, Draconic Overlord. But let's start with its grade 1.
Dies.
Never dies. We
are never free.
The embodiment of Armor Bar, Auto, when it's rode upon by Dragon Knight Nahalem, counterblast 1, search your deck for up to 1 grade 1 card, or reveal it and put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. And then Auto rearguard once a turn. When your Vanguard's attack hits, this unit gets plus 5k until the end of turn. So with the Vanguard Circle, obviously this is reminiscent of the OG Kagero starter way back when Vanguard first started off, and that is of course my boy Conroe.
So this card's just good. It's just good. It's Bar, which is a 13k booster, with Conroe stapled on top of it.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, and
imagine having a good ride line stares at Eugene.
And I mean, you also get
Eugene's ride line's actually not.
Yeah, Eugene sets it up. Yeah, we'll punch down on Eugene a lot in this set. Grade 1s, there's a lot of grade 1s to tutor for in the Overlord deck. Of course, perfect guards are your main thing you'll be tutoring for mostly, just because it's always nice to have a perfect guard in hand. But there are other cards. We'll talk about this card later, which is Dragon Monk Gojo, a good countercharger, Tennisstad, which is a Persona Ride Searcher, which is really good in Overlord. The grade 2 is Dragon Knight Nahalem. Nahalem says, When this unit is rode upon by a unit with Overlord in its card name, call this card to rearguard circle. And then act rearguard circle once a turn. If you have a Vanguard with Overlord in its card name, Soul Blast 1 in this unit, and all of your Vanguards get plus 5k until end of turn.
Yeah, another just solid ride line. You notice the best and smoothest ride lines in Overdress, so like, honestly, I was punching down at Eugene, but I think overall the two weakest ride lines is, by far the weakness is Magnolia, because Magnolia doesn't run it. That's how bad it is. And then after that, it's Barrow Magnus. Like, that ride line's fine because it gets you to 6 soul, but it's super awkward with the way it's set up and the resources you have to put into it. Whereas, again, you look at this Overlord ride line here. You get a tutor for a counterblast out of your grade 1, and now with your grade 2, you just get a free call of a very powerful grade 2, because on top of being, you know, your grade 2 in your ride line, it's a 15k beater that also gives you plus 5k to your Vanguard, and you don't Soul Blast a lot in Overlord, so cards nuts in the ride line, cards nuts in the main deck. It's a 15k beater that also buffs your Vanguard, and it's just real good.
The phrase I will probably say a lot in this video is, if you're 15k, you're okay with me.
Really? Because I know a particular double R in Dark States that is not true for.
That's later. That's later. Dragon Knight in the Holm is kind of like your staple rear guard. It's going to be your best attacker in the deck. It powers up Overlord to 18k and then 28k on Persona Red turns, which you will get often in Overlord. This card's good, and it's a free card. It's really good. We move on to the big boss. Draconic Overlord. Continuous on Vanguard and Rearguard Circle. During the battle, this unit attacked a rearguard. Your opponent cannot call cards from their hand to guard circle. And then auto Vanguard Circle. Once a turn, when this unit's attack hits, counterblast 1, discard a card from your hand, stand this unit, and it gets drive -1 until end of turn.
So this is Sam's boy here, so I'm going to let him do most of the work. But I will say initial impressions for both this and PBD, and we'll get to PBD later. This didn't seem fantastic. It seemed like it struggled, but after playing it a bit and seeing some of the results, the deck attacks on enough metrics and its support, you know, with Nahalem and some of the other stuff in the set, but Nahalem's a big part of that, is good enough that this deck is a threat, and you really just eke out a ton of value just attacking into your opponent's rear guards first, restanding Overlord, and then making your next attack for the turn.
We play tested with this deck, and by we I mean me. This deck is really solid. Overlord is just really good. I don't think it's incredibly broken. Getting a free rearguard out is always nice. There is a lot of trickery that we will talk about later in this nation that helps the deck thrive in case your opponent doesn't have any rearguards in the front row. Just solid advantage. Overlord is a great deck, and I'm really excited to build this in paper, as Overlord was my first deck, and playing the deck kind of reminded me of going back to 2012, 2013, when Overlord, I would just jam games with my Overlord deck, so I'm really excited.
Alright, well, I was going to dunk on the encounter cards, because I personally hate them and wish they were anything else, but you made a nice nostalgia story there, so I'll lay off.
The other triple rare in Dragon Empire is Verena Erger? I can't...
I'll tell you right now, I'm not calling this thing frickin' Erger.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call it Edgar.
Edgar?
It's Verena Edgar now.
It is Verena Edgar. Okay. Overdress over Trickstar. Auto hand. At the end of the battle, your Trickstar attacked a Vanguard. If your Vanguard is Nirvana, Soul Blast 2, overdress this card on your Trickstar and Rearguard Circle as stand and countercharge 1. And then continuous on Rearguard Circle and Guard Circle. If this unit is in the overdress state, this unit gets plus 10,000 power and plus 10,000 shield.
So, strangely enough, despite the strength of this card, we haven't seen too many results yet. But no matter what, this pretty much replaces Verena in the deck, because you weren't really Soul Blasting 2 to retire rear guard anyway. Sometimes it was nice and relevant, most of the time it wasn't. This is also Soul Blasting 2, but for a much more powerful effect in multi-attack, which is the king of Overdress. Like, all the multi-attack decks sit at the top. Anything that's attacking 3 times really needs some, like, strong draws and strong tech to overcome the multi-attack decks. Verena having that now on top of its massive numbers is a huge get. And again, it basically replaces Verena in the deck because this is like a similar card. It's getting that plus 10k, except unlike Verena, it's not on attack, it's on all the time. Plus, on top of that, it's plus 10k shield. And an interesting thing to note, it's a plus 10k shield for a 15k intercept, which is actually kind of insane tech against Overlord. Now, normally they just attack this anyway, but, like, now they have to. They don't have a choice, because otherwise you 15k intercept. But, yeah, no, just initial impressions from this. It's really good. The other support we'll get in the set makes it pretty possible to have frequent and relevant Trickstar attacks, and also rebuy to continually play Edgars. And even as just a grade 2U play that's 20k on your opponent's turn, and a 15k intercept, it's just very, very strong.
Yeah, I always say that multi-attacking is the best thing to do in Vanguard. And
the best thing to do in Vanguard is NLK alerts, but you know.
Well, that's multi-attacking.
I guess it got me.
Yeah. And giving Overdress the ability to multi-attack is just really strong. I've seen a few more results of Arena coming out, and I've seen like decks that run 4 of every Overdress, including Verena, but I've seen decks without Verena. I think this card definitely places Verena. I think you still ultimately run 1 just because you get a free card out of your deck anyway.
It's not free though. The Soul Blast one is relevant.
Soul Blast,
to really make this work, you got a Soul Blast too. That's not cheap.
Yeah, I do think the Soul Blast one is relevant, but I also think you have tools that can kind of help negate it in a way.
We've also glossed over the fact that this also countercharges for some reason.
Yeah, that which is
like
really good. I mean, Dragon Empire got some good countercharge, and Overdress got like this card that countercharges. One of the weaknesses of the deck was it was counterblast intensive, which led to, you know, counterplays of attacking into arcs. And now Verena kind of Edgar kind of fixes this deck's issue with that anyway. But we can't mention the multi-attack aspect without mentioning this next card, which is Blaze Fist Monk Damari. It's a double rare grade 3 that says, at the end of the battle this unit attacked on a rearguard circle. Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1, choose one of your opponent's front row rearguards, retire it. And if your Vanguard is Nirvana, choose up to one of your grade 0 cards from your drop and call it the rearguard circle. So this kind of extends the multi-attack from Verena Edgar from 4 to 5.
Yeah. This is also a theme in set 2 of like, why does this card also do this? Like, there's no reason Edgar should countercharge. There's not really a reason this card should retire. And we'll get to a particular triple R later that doesn't have a reason to have any of its abilities, to be perfectly honest. But that's a rant for another day. With this guy, he's just so good. We still have a lot to do with lists and stuff. The current list we started with and the lists I've seen have been doing a 2-2 split with this guy and Valiente, because Valiente is still strong, and you have arcs and some amount of arenas to still overdress Valiente over. But this dude is just so powerful.
Yeah.
The cost is low enough in the deck, especially with the fact that Edgar countercharges. It's easy to pull off. You get to pop one of your opponent's rear guards for the trouble. You get to keep cycles going, especially because it's coming from the drop zone, so you can intercept with your trick stars. You can discard them to stuff to keep the cycles going. And the key part of this card is it doesn't say open. So you could call it over something, and that's really, again, how you extend those multi.
Yeah, you start with this, call Trickstar, write Edgar, keep in mind, Edgar countercharges the counterblast from Damari too, so it's kind of like you're just soul blasting
It's just
one
free.
if you're getting
You
the full
activate
thing.
Nirvana after that.
Yeah. It's really good. The deck changes. The deck gets a lot better. It was already in a pretty good spot anyway, and now it's just got a lot better. But to be expected from the main protagonist deck, if we're being honest here.
Yeah, though, again, it's still behind Bastion and Bruce by a pretty good margin, and they both got some insane support out of this set as well.
Yeah, we'll have to see how the deck plays out, but I feel pretty confident in Nirvana.
The thing about Verena that I still think remains to be the case is it is the most fun deck in Overdress.
Yeah.
Like, until you sit down and play a game with Verena, like, the deck feels so good, even though you're 2-for-1ing yourself with the whole, champion a Trickstar. Like, it's unreal good.
Yes. Moving on to Stealth Dragon Togachi Rashi. Auto, when this card is discarded from hand during your turn, you may put this card into your soul. Now, we mentioned Verena deck uses a lot of soul, and this is one of your new tools to kind of negate all of these soul blasts.
Yeah, this card is sweet. It is super sweet. The downside of it being a 7k booster as opposed to 8k is sort of negligible because you pretty much never want to be calling.
Yeah, if you're calling it, you're in trouble.
Yeah, you're maybe not in trouble, but this card is just so good because it's a free discard to your ride line because it works for that because you discard it on your turn, and so you essentially just get to soul charge one ride. It helps shore up your soul because of that. In addition, Verena has Nirvana with its discard to get your Trickstars back, and technically
Valiente's
Valiente for its multi attack. If your opponent lets Valiente hit, they tend to be losing the game anyway. But it's still nice that this works with that.
Yes, I would also mention that Overlord also likes this card too, because you're soul blasting with Nahalem, and Overlord discards a card, so you can discard this and just get your soul refunded from Nahalem.
Yeah. This card is just in a great position where it is fantastic as Verena support in this set. It's also pretty fantastic as Overlord support in this set, and just going forward, this is just going to be a staple of Dragon Empire. Any deck that wants soul, this is going to be great for, because again, the cost of it being a 7k booster is going to be negligible, because most Dragon Empire clans do a pretty good job of hitting numbers by themselves anyway, so minus 1k is not going to be a big deal, and it's just free, because you have to discard for ride line anyway.
Drag Ritter Idris. Act, Rearguard Circle. If your opponent's rearguard was retired this turn, cost Counterblast 1, and perform one of the following. This unit gets plus 10k until end of turn. Put this unit into your soul, choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or greater rearguards, and retire it.
Oh, okay. I was going to be a little nice to start, but never mind. I didn't realize this card only hit grade 2 or graders. So, you know what? If you have a piece on this, say it, because the next card is Berserk Dragon, right?
No. It's G Brachio.
Oh, it's grade 2 Jabroni. Okay, well, listen, for those of you who don't know, we're not there yet, but Berserk Dragon's in the set, and Berserk Dragon retires a rear guard when it attacks. So, you're telling me that Eugene gets shafted for support because we had to freaking throw Dragon Empire into Overdress for some goddamn reason, so we don't get a triple R. Then the double R we get is only a marginal upgrade to our grade 1 ride line card, because the cost of it being a 5k booster when you don't have it active is very real, and on top of that, this only hits grade 2 or greater rear guards, and like, yeah, it's kind of soul charge, but like, this card is awful. I don't care that you run it in the deck. I don't care it's good for Eugene. This card does nothing to fix Eugene's weaknesses of being easy to counterplay, of having a top end that is not very good because it's a totally random amount of call that's not great, and just having no good finishers. We have 15k attackers, and we have a card that goes into Soul to give our Vanguard crit, but that's it. No multi-attack, and like the retire's not that good because if our opponent plays around the retire, our deck doesn't do anything. What is this set? Like, how did they like look at what they did with Eugene in set 1 and go, yeah, we can just let Eugene take a set off? Like, what's the worst that could happen? Oh my god. God, this card sucks. This card's worse than the Grabmaster Double R. Straight up. At least that's like kind of somewhat relevant. You know. Nah, they're on par. Both this and the Grabmaster Double R are flaming garbage. And your Stoikeo. Those 3 Double Rs suck and are worse than commons. Well, not this one, but this card still sucks. Jesus.
Well,
ugh.
I have nothing more to add.
It's so bad. Why do they make Eugene jump through every hoop? Like, it's not even that good if it got to do its thing.
we got another Eugene card to talk about. So we got Strong Fortress Dragon Jibro Brachio. Act Rearguard Circle. If your Vanguard is Eugene, cost Soul Blast 1 and rest this unit. Choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire it. And then auto rearguard at the start of your battle phase if your opponent has 1 or less rearguards. Stand this unit and it gets plus 5k until the end of turn.
Okay, so I'm gonna calm down a little bit. So that grade 1 we just looked at from earlier, the Double R.
Yeah.
It's not like bad, but it's so many hoops to jump through. The grade 2 or greater condition on it is just so tilting. But it is super playable in the deck. It provides you with Soul, which is huge. And it does provide you with some amount of top end. Because it's not once per turn. You can get that thing up to like a 25k booster. That can kind of help you finish games. It's, you know, it's a toolbox addition to the deck that is always worth considering in deck building. This card right here is fantastic. No, it's not fantastic. This card in here is great. Eugene wants 15k attackers because all it has going for it is aggression.
Yes.
Plus, this is another form of retire in the first effect. And it's, you know, a decent form of retire. Plus, because Eugene is all about the retire, and this is another form of retire, and we have multiple grade 1s that retire, and they retire in conjunction with Eugene. And that's pretty great. And then with grade 2 Jabroni, this guy.
Jibro Brachio.
Yeah, anything that's a J name that's hard to pronounce is a jabroni.
Okay.
And this is the grade 2 jabroni. Then, like, the fact that it has this clause where at the start of the battle phase, if your opponent has 1 or less, it restands and gets 15k, is great. Because if it isn't rested, it still just becomes a 15k attacker. But if you rest it for its ability or Eugene ability, it gets to restand. So you get, you know, free value off of that, negate the cost. Fantastic. So that's me done being nice. So the problem with this card is why in any universe does it require a Soul Blast when we don't have good Soul Charge in this freaking deck? They gave us, like, maybe a Soul Charge 2, but it, like, costs, like, Counterblast 1 or 2 or something. Like, at least it doesn't have a condition on the retire this time, but just, like, why is everything a battle with Eugene? Like, why is everything a battle? Why can this card not just rest? Like, why do I have to sack Soul? Heck, it could Counterblast and I'd be fine. Like, whatever. This card's good. Run it as a 4 of in all your Eugene decks. But, like, please, in set 3, give us a triple R that does something. Because we already had 8 15Ks. And unfortunately, you can't really run 12 because you don't have Soul if you run 12. So, like, please give us something. Because, like, the deck does nothing right now. It attacks with 15Ks and, like, kind of retires. But that's not good enough. You have frickin' Bastion with the easiest 4 attack on the planet. And it draws 500 million cards. And then you have frickin' Dark States that either board wipes you and attacks 5 times or attacks like 7+ times in a turn now. Like, why is Eugene stuck attacking 3 times in a turn and doing nothing else?
You know what card doesn't have to jump through hoops, though?
You know what card doesn't work with Eugene?
Yeah, Berserk Dragon. Auto Vanguard Circle. When this unit attacks, if you have a Vanguard with Overlord in its card name, this unit gets power plus 5k until end of that battle. Then, counterblast 1, choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or last rear guards and retire it. I think this card should work with Eugene.
They replaced the Eugene Triple R with Overlord, and like I think the general consensus was, okay, you know, this probably won't be great, but hopefully we get some decent stuff out of like double R's and rares and stuff. And they're all like, oh, Berserk Dragon's here, and we're all like, oh, great, that retires. That'll probably work in Eugene, and it doesn't. And this card's good. It's a easy 15k attacker that has like a pretty easy upside to help, you know, gain you more value on the battlefield, you know, turn on cards that care about retiring rear guards. You can't hit grade 3s, but that's only a problem against Bastion. And you have other stuff to like fight Bastion with than this card. And like everything else, you're at least popping like relevant boosters and stuff. Like, why does this card not work with Eugene?
This is a great card for Overlord, though.
Oh yeah, it's super good.
Yeah, another 15k attacker. You can just kind of pump your grade 2s with 15k attackers and kind of start to pop targets on your opponent's board. And the Berserk Dragon, it's a classic Overlord card, and it's great that it's back in this set too.
Yeah, plus like you think about Overlord right now, just like easily you have 8 15k attackers with upside. Your Nahalims pump your Vanguard, this retires. And then a lot of the lists are just running the, if your opponent has 2 or less rear guards, it gets plus 5k for the 15k. Like, your aggression is on point, and it's easy to turn on.
Yeah. Okay. We have a order for Dragon Empire that works in Overdress only. Play this with cost, discard a card with Overdress ability from your hand. Draw 2 cards. We are split on this card.
I can't speak on the Verena lists that have come out of the early Japanese results. So the thing about this card is it isn't card advantage. That's like my main point about this card. It is not card advantage. You are trading 2 cards for 2 cards. It is cycling.
Yeah.
Now in old Verena, like set 1 Verena, I never really came across a moment where I'm all like, oh, I have all these Overdress cards rotting in my hand. I sure wish I had a random card in my hand that could discard itself and this Overdress card to cycle. Never really had that issue. Arcs gives you plenty of card advantage, and then you were riding Valiente over those arcs, and you were keeping trains going that way. You had plenty of fodder to discard to get your Trick Stars back and keep it going. It worked pretty well.
Yeah.
In set 2 with Edgar, your Verenas kind of suck now. And you just want to be multi-attacking with Edgars or overdressing arcs to draw cards, and then if you draw into like random Valientes, you overdress those over your arcs. So the thing with Edgar now is there is an easy universe where you're all like, okay, I get a 1 of Verena in my deck off my ride line, and then if I ever draw this order, it is now essentially advantage because that Verena card was free to get because I tutored it out, and now I'm turning it into relevant cards. So yeah.
My argument is, outside of like you getting your first Trick Star, Arcs isn't like card advantage either. It's the body of the board, sure, but you're not, gaining cards in your hand outside of you get a +1 for calling a Trick Star to the board out of your deck. The lists I've seen with this card, you're running every Overdress card possible. Now, if I got, I believe, first place in the team league, so I guess it worked out, but 4 Verenas, 4 Valientes, 4 Arcs, 4 Edgars in order to make this card work.
And then the only grade 1, I assume, is the Soul Charge discard guy?
Yes, I believe so, and also Perfect Arts.
Perfect Arts don't count.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, I'm low on this card. I think in any Verena deck where you're playing more to the board, this card is bad, because you're totally fine with chaining arcs and overdressing Valientes on top of those arcs, and then you're just getting plenty of advantage in cards that way. And I still think arcs is always card advantage because you have a 15k on the board, so that is worth a card in and of itself.
Yeah.
Like, there are plenty of decks who just play a rear guard that is a 15k, and you get that and 2 cards into your hand.
Yeah, and I'm medium, where I think you run 2 copies just in case you need the extra draw. Like, you're going into situations where, like, oh man, I need to get into more relevant pieces, like a Valiente. Maybe you trade an Arcs for it. I don't know. I think it's a 2 of.
The card will see play, but it's not a 4 of. It's a situational card you play some amount of because it has value.
Yeah.
But it's not great.
Yeah. We'll move into select commons that we think might see play. Dragon Monk Gojo. Auto Rearguard Circle. When this boosts a Vanguard and the Vanguard's attack hits, retire this unit and countercharge 1. Generic countercharging in Dragon Empire is always good. Hopefully that comes to other nations like Heya. Nirvana could always use more. Overlord will definitely play this. Yeah. Another thing to note is the meta is gonna run around Dark State's Leonard, right? And attacking a whole column, having this to play on your turn, hopefully it hits, and then being able to retire it so then Leonard can't attack into your Vanguard's columns is relevant for sure. Future decks that might want Countercharge are going to look at this card as an option too. So overall, one of the best cards that came out of Dragon Empire of the set, in my opinion. Next, we have Blazed Fist Monk N10. Auto Rearguard Circle. When the attack of this unit boosted hits, cost Soul Blast 1 and retire this unit. Choose one of your units and it gets power plus 10k until end of turn. This is mostly for Overlord, just to give Overlord extra power. This is kind of a budget option too if you don't want to run some of the more expensive cards in Dragon Empire. Definitely like a solid option. Overlord gets 28k off of this card, 38k with Persona Ride. This card can kind of make Overlord go kind of nutso and kind of forces your opponent to have the perfect guard, or they're losing a lot of cards in guarding.
Honestly, since we already mentioned it, Leonard is like the big boogeyman of this set. We will get to it. The card is not okay. This sort of seems like how you should be building Overlord early on then, because you run, again, I don't have the exact slots, but essentially you run some amount of Gojo, some amount of this, some amount of the Soul Charge grade 1 double order.
You also have tennis stats because those are guaranteed Persona rights as well.
They retire themselves as well. Yeah, but essentially you can just build Overlord with a lot of these boosters that retire themselves when stuff hits.
Yeah.
And you can play around Leonard while also like hitting massive numbers, dealing a bunch of damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, fucking Overlord's good.
Yeah, I think this is an underrated card, but definitely one Overlord is going to be happy to have. Next, Blaze Maiden Aruna. Cost Rearguard Circle. During the battle, this unit boosted to grade 0. This unit gets plus 5k.
So this card is weird. It reads very well, because you read it and go, oh, perfect. I'm able to boost my Trick Stars and make them attack for 18. Which is a good number to hit and really sets up my multi-attack. The problem is the slots in Verena are pretty thin, and it's sort of hard to fit this in. But it's a good and interesting card because it does make your whole... Because the weakness of your multi-attack setup is you have to attack with the Trick Star, and the Trick Star is a grade 0 5k. This is a card to watch out for. It's a common, so it'll be easy to pick up a playset. It's worth testing, it's worth playing around with, but it is in an awkward spot of it reads well, and it reads powerful, but the slots just probably aren't there for it.
Yeah, I can see it. I think it's worth mentioning. If you're looking into building this is definitely a card to consider.
Yeah, it's just a weird thing is like you really only need boosters in Verena for your Trick Stars. Literally everything else just always hits good numbers.
Yeah, and even then, Persona Ride, Trick Stars becomes 15k, and then suddenly you don't need the booster. Even if it's a weak attack later in the game, that's still something you have to guard, which is annoying. And finally, we have Flame Dragon Bomber. It's an order. It reads, choose one of your vanguards, and until end of turn, it gets continuous Vanguard Circle. When all of your units would attack, they may attack your opponent's back row rear guard. This is an Overlord card. You want it to get rid of some pesky boosters. Probably only a 2 of in the deck, but it's still like an option to consider. Kind of like Cross Rock Dragon. I think I prefer Flame Dragon Bomber over Cross Rock Dragon, but I think you choose whichever card you prefer. That's the one you want to run. But I think they do the same thing.
This card is probably not good, like at all.
I disagree with
like,
that. I don't
like
think it's
you
like
would need a
I don't think it's amazing, but I do think that Overlord might want to attack into a grade 1 that's really pesky and like, oh god, how do I get rid of this? Well, you have this option now.
Yeah, I mean, this is 100% a metagame call.
Yeah.
Because it is only good. Pretty much only good in Overlord. Like, you can't use this in any of the Dragon Empire things, but
that's what I'm saying. Overlord will want this card, or Overlord probably plays a couple. I've seen these in some of the Overlord decks that have come out.
And I think I believe that probably because they're sniping Protobulb amongst other things.
They're sniping Protobulbs.
And it's actually pretty good against Bastion too, especially with Overlord. You can take out Dark Strains, you can take out the new guy, you can take out a bunch of stuff in Bastion because they want to be playing big boards.
You can take out back row units in Magnolia as well.
Yeah, but I still think this is a metagame claw because I have a particular opinion on orders, which is if you can be running a rear guard over them, you should be. Because when these cards don't do anything, they do less than nothing. They are so very dead in your deck, which is part of why I'm low on that cycling order from earlier. Because when you just top deck that card with no Overdress cards in your hand, it is horrific. And that's just my opinion for any order. Like, when you can't turn this into value, like at any point in the game outside of its need, and when the need is really, when its niche is really specific, like, that's a problem. So,
yeah.
I'm low on this card. I don't play Overlord, though, so it doesn't really matter to me because I don't think you're running this in anything else. But in certain metagames, I see this, being obviously pretty powerful.
This is a nice card for Overlord. 2 of, if you think this is the right play. So that's Dragon Empire. Overall, I think it's a clan that fared pretty well in set 2. Unless you're Eugene.
Overlord, yeah. Overlord looks strong. A lot of powerful effects tend to be behind if this thing hits in Vanguard, because that's like the main metric you play Vanguard on. Like, you attack and then your opponent defends, and there's a lot of agency and decision making to be making whether you let something hit. So the fact that Overlord can just, attack a rear guard for free and pretty much be guaranteed to hit it is actually just like way more powerful than I initially thought when I read the card, because there's so much stuff that's hit walled that Overlord gets to turn on top of getting free value by essentially retiring a rear guard and all this other stuff. And again, the support's really strong with super powerful 15k attackers. Overlord looks sweet and fun, and even though I hate the encounter cards, at least it's an interesting deck for the meta.
Yeah, I'm happy with the deck. Verena looks to be incredible. We thought of it as a top 4 deck in set 1. Probably moves into the top 3. Bastion and Bruce are still just above it, but I think Verena gets a lot of cool and interesting tools to give it a fun new playstyle.
Yeah, no, the Verena support is great. Though overall, I feel like Verena sort of falters because they gave us a bunch of like random maiden cards that just don't do anything, and like pretty much the only relevant Verena card in the set is Edgar itself. But Edgar's so powerful. Like the monk, I'm forgetting about the monk.
You're forgetting about the monk.
Too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but just Edgar's so powerful, and it adds such an important dimension to Verena that Verena ends up coming out a big winner, and it just cements itself as the protagonist deck. It really does.
Yeah.
And
we'll
like,
see Eugene
Jesus.
in set 3.
Yeah, we will see Eugene in set 3. Like, the best we got is 2 minor upgrades, because Eugene's just not good enough to really consistently turn on the Brontosaurus, the Jabroni, and just the 1-drop's so bad. Like, I'm actually wondering why people are dropping the grade 1. Like, is it the soul? Because the grade 1 ride line is better than that card. Like, it just is.
I think it's just the versatility, but
I guess it is versatile, and like, that's important. I do undervalue that in card games.
yeah. That wraps up Dragon Empire. We're reviewing the whole set, so subscribe to Vanguard Zone for more set 2 content, including deck lists as we get closer to the English release. My name is Sam. That's Gianluca. Subscribe to the channel.
Okay, baby.
Like if you like this video. Comment about any cards we missed. And we'll see you next time.